She Says So, brought to you by S&S Passage Supermarket and thebesttoys.com.
She's unstoppable. She's got the power to break the chains and make it louder. She says so.
Welcome to another edition of She Says So, where we delve into the stories of remarkable women who are shaping the landscape of Trinidad and Tobago. Today, we're speaking to a young woman who shaped the landscape of film and entertainment in Trinidad and Tobago. Leslie Ann Wills-Caton is a visionary leader and a film producer who has made significant contributions to film and the event sector. With over decades of experience, Leslie Ann brings passion, creativity, expertise, and everything else to all of her roles. She's a general manager at Film TT. She's the owner and founder of Fixer Films Limited in Trinidad and Tobago. And she's joining us here to tell us a little bit about her journey. And this time we're going to start from the very beginning. Leslie Ann, how are you?
I am good, Eva. Thank you.
Now, I know off air I said, you asked, what is the focus? And I said, we are just having a conversation.
All right.
Because when you walked into this studio, everyone knew who you were. Because so I understood the impact that you have in this film industry. Let me start from the beginning. How did you end up in this industry?
From secondary school, actually, my parents were involved in the arts and drama. That's actually how they met. And they were childhood sweethearts. And as a child, I used to see them do productions, put on plays. And I wrote my first script. I was around 11 years old. And it was a Father's Day play. And my dad said, you will talk to the youth group about it. I was terrified. And he said, we will not leave this session until you go in front of the group and tell us about the script. And I hesitated for quite some time. It probably took about 20 minutes, and then I got up and I told them about the storyline. They loved it. And we actually put it on for Father's Day that year. And I fell in love in terms of script and writing. And as I went to university, I actually studied psychology and human resource management. But there was a film student asking for actors. And I pivoted, and I went, and I was the actress in one of the stories. I will not say the name of it. And from there, I just kind of moved up. I worked on several international.
Was that during your university?
Yes. I started with that film in UE. It was a student film. And then I moved on to work in entertainment. I was working with Errol Fabian and some other people, Nikki Crosby, doing different productions and stuff like that. And then Lisa Wickham had a production, Home Again. And she was asking for production assistants and stuff like that. I applied, and I was hooked. And I've been doing film and TV and everything ever since.
Now, you fondly remember that play on your church time, going and your father saying, say the story.
Yes.
Do you love, what is the most exciting element to you? Producing, writing, vetting the script. Tell me, what is the one element that you find most satisfaction in?
Being able to see our stories come to life. And the reason why I say that, I love behind the scenes the most, but I also like that we tell the right stories that could motivate the young people looking at it. I think that once a story is told the right way, because I fell in love with the world and what we can do and who I am based on different things I would look at. And so for me, the best part of film is seeing it on the screen and being able to know that the story was told that would motivate and influence.
You also own Fixer Film Limited. Tell me a little bit about your company and how did that journey start?
Fixer Film Limited is an administrative company. And why I say that is in the film industry, we had people being cinematographers, gaffers, producers, directors, and then we didn't have the administration. And because my background is HR and psychology, weirdly enough, I love administration. I normally would be hired to set up the production office, do all the paperwork, do literally every logistics with it. Normally, I would be like the first assistant director or the second assistant director doing call sheets, daily production reports. And so Fixer Film became the only administration company in film that would facilitate commercials, music videos, reality series, feature films, and I absolutely love it.
You took a risk by starting this business.
I did, actually. I used to work Petrotrin because based on where I was in the oil and gas sector. But once I realized that there was a gap, and because I always say a film is like doing an event for an extended period of time. And of course, I'm also an event planner. So when I realized that it was really event planning times 15 days or times 25 days or 32 days, I found the niche of using the human resources, the event planning, and my love for storytelling to really form a really good company that works.
How long has the company been in operation?
2014. So I
And-
turned 10 years this year.
Did you ever imagine that?
No, because it was not the intention to do film, but once I found the gap, I ran with it, and it works.
What is the next chapter for your company?
Being more international, so collaborating more outside, doing more co-productions, being able to still be the administrative hub because it's still very much needed, but expanding, being able to hire more individuals, training and development is very important. I do think a lot of capacity development is still needed regarding the administrative side of film. And so I want to kind of open that training and development arm of it to be able to get persons on board to understand the industry standards that the international productions are looking for.
Now, looking at the films that we produce locally, you sit in a unique perspective. So you have the administrative company, you're in Film TT, and you've had an experience acting coming straight up and going on the production element of it. When we talk about our standards of film versus the Netflix productions versus the Universal productions, how far off are we?
I'm always mindful with that question because the budget is a big difference. So right now, our budgets are still independently based. When you think of an international studio like Netflix, they're spending 50 million USD, 100 million USD. Our films normally would range from around 250,000 USD to about, I want to say, $1 million USD. And so but in terms of even the spend, it's not about that, it's the story. And so once we're able to tell the right stories, tell our stories, and be organic, it doesn't matter how much we spend, we can be just as competitive.
We take a short break. When we come back, we're going to find out what makes a good story. Can you tell a good story? Everyone says Trinis are the best storytellers. When we come back with She Said So, we're continuing our conversation.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, and bathtubs. Visit us in store at first floor Movingtown Port of Spain, Forces flagship MacBean, Eastgates Mall, City, or shop online now. And remember, we have the best for your baby at the best prices.
SNS Passage Supermarket comes to St. Mary's Freeport. With the wide aisles of variety, quality you can trust, a community hub, and loyalty rewards. When I say they have everything, they have everything from your fresh produce, your wines and spirits, your butcher meat, seafood, bakery, you name it, they have it. And with these prices, trust me, you're guaranteed to save some money in your pocket. So come on down and shop today at the brand new SNS Passage Supermarket, St. Mary's Freeport.
She's unstoppable. She's got the power.
We're continuing with She Said So, and we have Leslie Ann Wills-Caton. She is talking to us about film. Before we took this break, she said once you say a good story, you may have a hit on your hands. So now I have to ask the question, what makes a good story?
Honesty. I will say a lot of times as filmmakers, telling the truth, I always say film is like art. You resonate with art based on the emotion that's poured into it. And what we've noticed is the better films, once you're being honest, genuine, and being true to who you are as a creative, as the story writer, as the director, then the audience connects with the emotion. And once you do that, once you be honest and tell your truth, that art, that emotion comes across.
You know, you talk about the authenticity, Leslie Ann,
Yeah.
but then they have some people who there's a typical arc. There's a hero arc, a villain arc. Everyone tells you in storytelling. Because I know when I did my first degree, actually most people don't notice, like you, nothing in television production, nothing in media. It was business management. I started off in the bank. And life happens.
Yes.
But you know, so you have those standardized, and people use that as a sure line way of success. But you're saying don't do that.
No, I'm saying you can still have the act 1, act 2, act 3, and you have the story act.
Yeah.
People use the save the cat philosophy. But within that act, you still need to have something that resonates through to the director or to the screenplay that connects to the general audience. And once you can still tap in with the emotion, it works and it's successful.
Now, you talk about Trinidad and Tobago being true to ourselves and seeing ourselves. We have such a rich cultural diversity. Why are we not told more of our stories?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that question. I always challenge filmmakers because I wear so many hats. Normally when we have any kind of script to screen competitions, we would normally guide them. We would say, tell stories that showcases Trinidad and Tobago. Think about our culture, because we have such amazing culture, whether it's the food, the music, the locations, and really pull from there. So we kind of guide them to do so. But it's a work in progress. I will say we are constantly getting them to be more honest and to speak your truth. We live in a beautiful space. We have so many creations and inventions in Trinidad and Tobago. Just our culture alone fascinates. And it is a gap. It's a storytelling gap that's needed outside. And once we get them to tell it, we will go far.
Yeah, I can always tell, it's funny you said, as in the marketing space, I can look at someone's social media and know when AI is generating every one of their captions. And I'm always like, why do they do that? There's no connection.
With the emojis.
Yeah, yeah, and you can always tell that. Stop the emojis.
Stop the emojis.
But as a woman in film and in the entertainment industry, you're a business owner. What are some of the unique challenges? You have the advantage of you started from the ground building up.
Yeah.
But what are some of the challenges that you faced along the way?
Challenges would have been being able to get more experience, because for me, not being a filmmaker initially, being more administrative based, is once I got my foot in, I had to still learn. And so that challenge for me, starting as a production assistant, moving as a secretary, and being able to see the potential of film, I started buying books. I did courses. I went and I studied. I went to England to do a short course in producing. The challenge for me was where else and what else can I learn about the industry so that I could know. I was always very hungry to know what was needed from me. And even from the software perspective, I bought the software. I bought the final draft. I had the movie magic. Anything that I felt was needed to be able to do the job well, I got it. So the challenges would be the funding to get it, but I saved and I purchased.
It's funny that you say that, because a lot of people don't see it as an investment. They see it as an expense.
It's not an expense.
Explain that to the young people, because I told that to a young person the other day. You spend so much money on a fancy coffee.
Yes.
You spend money on these fancy lunches and overpriced salads. Cut that out. But understanding the importance of investing in yourself.
Yes. What I would say is not knowing is the expense. Because when you do not know, you don't realize how much you're leaving on the table. But once you have the right software and you're using the right tools, then you know. And so you immediately have that competitive advantage. And so and what I get a lot is producers asking, can you break down this script for us? And I am doing budgets for international companies because I have the program and I understand the market that's needed. A lot of the times we see people still doing budgeting using Excel.
Yes.
I cringe. It's not. That's just not the industry standard. And so once you know it, then you get more jobs, you get more offers because you have upskilled and you've purchased the right software. And that's not expensive at all.
No, it's not. I know we spoke about what makes a good film. What are some of the common mistakes people make? I don't want to say a bad film, but what are some of the common mistakes that you see from when a script lands on you, when a production house drops something on you?
Do you want my truth?
I want your truth. You are telling me to be authentic.
Because now, if I'm wearing my first AD hat, because normally we'd have to break down scripts. So the first mistake is formatting, not using the right software. Please use Final Draft. Right?
With a smile.
Yeah, not using the right software. And so immediately the timing is off. The script writing, you'll know how many actual minutes in the film. And then the formatting of it, understanding the nuances of the structure of the script. So before I get into the story, once it's not written correctly, you're already off. And so budgeting is challenging. I can look at a script and I can budget it out because of the experience. And then the storyline, you can see gaps where you can tell. This is why I am saying to be authentic so often. Once you read it, just like think of reading a novel. What gets us into a novel? What is that feeling that we want to experience? You can tell when it's just cut and paste. And so I look for that. I look for the emotion. But mostly what tells is a bad script formatting. It throws everything off.
Working with creatives can be difficult.
Yes.
Everyone thinks they have a blockbuster. Everyone thinks they're the next big thing.
Yes.
How do you manage personalities on a film production?
Well, so there are different layers because there's the development side of it.
Yeah.
Normally, sometimes we can't do anything about the script, man. Let's say I have to work with the script as is, and then you're managing the personality of the director. It's their story to tell. And so for me, my job is to get it done. And so the role that I wear, if this is the story you want to tell, I'm not the producer on it. What I love about film is we all know our role. So if my role is to get it done, I will respectfully encourage and support you telling your story. That's not my place. I always think though there's a layer of still, if that's the story they want to tell, they should be allowed to tell it. And then there are films that people hate. There are films that reviewers hate. But then it's a hit. It's a cult hit. So it depends, you know?
And I wanted to ask, we take a short break. I know we're out of time for this segment. When we come back, I want to ask that because sometimes you see it even in Hollywood, things rate so bad with the critics and then they're so well with the audience. And then on the flip side, you see the awards coming in and you're like, what? Stay with us. We find a little more about the film industry.
Are you looking for a customizable studio space with green and white screen cyclorama and professional production equipment to carry out your next big project? SGP Studios is the perfect fit for you. TNT's largest studio space with an overhead lighting grid and sound treated, perfect for television commercials, music videos, television programs, social media content, and film productions. We also have a wide range of production equipment available for rental. You can choose from a selection of Netflix approved cameras, modern lighting equipment, professional audio gear, 40-foot and 20-foot cranes, gimbals, drones, lenses, action cameras, and more, all at competitive prices. Whether you need a high-end cinema camera for a feature film shoot, specialized lighting equipment for a music video, or audio gear for a podcast, we've got you covered. And with our easy online booking system, you can reserve the gear you need in just a few clicks. Check us out online at sgpstudios.com.
SNS Passage Supermarket comes to St. Mary's Freeport with the wide aisles of variety, quality you can trust, a community hub, and loyalty rewards. When I say they have everything from your fresh produce, your wines and spirits, your butcher meat, seafood, bakery, you name it, they have it. These prices, trust me, you're guaranteed to save some money in your pocket. So come on down and shop today at the brand new SNS Passage Supermarket, St. Mary's Freeport.
She's unstoppable. She's got the power.
Welcome back to She Says So. We're continuing our conversation with Leslie Ann Wilski. Now, we've spoken about the film industry, Leslie Ann, but you have emerged as a powerhouse in the film industry. And tell me a little bit about, you gave me the start, but there must have been some defining moments where, one, I know this is what I want, or two, is this really what I want?
Yeah, I had several moments for me. Firstly, when my mom died when I was 14 years old, that was quite a shock for me. And I think when she passed, which was very unexpectedly, I felt like, what was the purpose of life? Because I remember just before she died, I felt like life was great. I'm the last of four, and I have this great family, and then she died on Mother's Day, and I feel like now every Mother's Day you're reminded of, the death of my mom. And I had moments where I questioned, why am I like, hey, what is why are we here to experience so much trauma? And then being able to, and then from 14, I had to kind of bounce around because my dad remarried, and that didn't go very well. And so I was in different spaces. I lived everywhere. You know, I always tell people I can pack a bag like that because I understand how to be in a space and kind of be invisible in the space at the same time.
How did that shape who you
Yeah.
are or your career choice?
You know what? I learned to deal with people. I can deal with people very well because of what I went through growing up. So I'm able to handle a lot of difficult situations. People say, "Listen, you're always smiling." Because just to me, if you can survive certain things that I would have gone through from 14 to about 18, I survived and I managed. And so there's nothing really in the workspace that could faze me. I'm
What are
not
some of the
fazed.
things that you survived that people would be surprised
Yeah.
at? We're getting to know Leslie Ann. If you say, hey, Mo, from 14 to 18, people be, I see you, and even listening to this now, I'm shocked. What are some of the things that
Yeah.
people would be, I did not know that was you?
Yeah, it would have been dealing with not being invited into spaces, meaning from even living at home, I felt like I didn't actually belong there. And so I wouldn't get into the details of it, but I always say that evil stepmom kind of situation is what I felt like I experienced because it was challenging and I had to kind of push through and be very strong with it and being able to still stand and say, you know what, this is it, I'm good, let me go somewhere else. So I was by my sister and my aunt and cousins, and at one point I stayed at my best friend's house for probably a year. You know, so I was able, I called myself a Rolling Stone, but it taught me so much because then I was in different environments, communicating with different people, and really realizing there's nothing that we should have an issue with because we're all just trying to figure life out. You know?
How do you think that has shaped, you talk about being able to communicate with people,
Yeah,
but did you feel silenced in all those years?
that's a good question. Silenced, maybe more questioning because it took me a longer time to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be. Because then being able to, once you're staying in different spaces, you kind of have to adjust to the house rules. And so it took me a while to be like, do I like this? Do I want to do this? Do I want to go here? It really took a while to kind of form my identity. But now I feel like I have an advantage because I know so much more and I could interact better for it.
When you talk about moving up to the top, a lot of times when you're at the top, you have the opportunity to speak to a lot of young women as well. Mentorship seems to play a big part in everyone's. Did you have mentors? You talked about the formative, tough years between 14 to 18.
Yeah.
But who influenced your life to keep going?
Yeah, no one. So now I am that person. I am the mentor that I wish I had. So I normally, like I talk to a lot of young people. I have munchkins, as I call them, where I deal with their contracts. I help them with their budgets. I have a number of young people I work with and advise. And they can call me at any point in time because when I was growing up, I wanted that. And I didn't have that at all. So I had to figure it out, literally. And I made mistakes because there was no one to say, hey, keep going, this is good. And so now I am very passionate about capacity development. And anybody who wants to know anything about film, just call me because I understand.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
5 years, it's right there. You know what is funny? I do want to open a school. But film, dealing with film and training and development, there's a lot that we still need to do locally. We're doing well, but there are lots of areas that we do have gaps. And I want to be able to get us there because once we realize that film is an ecosystem, then we'll get more jobs coming in and we can have more diversity and more can be done.
Did you have to ever correct someone to say that you've done it completely wrong?
Oh, yeah, all the time. But I mean, correcting someone is more of I sit them down and I ask them to tell me what was your process and tell me what you wanted out of this. Because a lot of times my wrong might be my experience, but you might know why you did it. And
Did
so,
anyone ever correct you and tell you got it wrong?
That's a good question. Not that I could recall. I remember though, well, Yes, I remember I was working, I wouldn't call the name of the station, but when I did the presentation, the person said, this is the worst thing they've ever seen in their life. I said, this is the worst you've ever seen in your entire life? She said, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. And it could not have been, you know, I just felt that she was being a little difficult. But I took that and I said, okay, and I redid it and it worked. But it also showed me that if you have to stand with what you want to do, there is a message. And this is why I go back to the authenticity, because people will have so many opinions. People might be having a bad day. They may not like you for whatever reason. But if you know the message you want to tell, then people could say, what? I'm still doing it.
What is your closing? I feel like that's a nice, we could say what I'm still doing. What's your closing comments?
Be yourself and tap into who you are. And don't be afraid to find that version of you as well. Have experiences, learn new skills, and be okay with taking your time. A lot of times I feel like we get obsessed with the social media and looking at people's success online. That's not real. You have to now be very much, reflect on who you are and find that version of you, and then share it with the world.
Share it with the world. Remember to do a little bit of introspection and check out Leslie Ann and her crew if you need to fix your film. This is another episode of She Says So. We continue to highlight women using their stories to not just empower, but to guide the next generation of women. Or maybe you, maybe at a moment where you want to pivot in life, you may be writing another chapter, and we do hope that these stories continue to inspire you. I want to encourage you to follow us on social media, to share the clips, because once we do that, the message gets out, and once enough people hear the message, we can see the tangible change that we want to see. So stay tuned to CNC3 for another episode coming soon with She Says So.
She's taking control. She's gonna rise up. She's gonna make you know.
She Says So was brought to you by SNS Passad Supermarket and thebesttoys.com.